When looking at the relationship between Batman and Superman, it's easy to get lost in the glaring differences that make these two icons so fascinating. Batman, with his human abilities and intense training, represents the pinnacle of human potential. He is proof that, with determination and discipline, an individual can achieve great feats. On the other hand, Superman is the most powerful being in the galaxy, with abilities that go far beyond human understanding. Now, imagine how these two can coexist in the same universe. The question arises, do their essences overshadow each other? One is the blinding light, while the other is the shadow that shapes it. Dennis O'Neil, a respected comic book writer, brought forth an intriguing perspective on this coexistence. In his view, Batman and Superman should not be in the same universe, and it makes perfect sense. Batman, the urban vigilante, fights crime with cunning and technology, while Superman, the extraterrestrial, faces threats on a cosmic scale. Therefore, the narrative could be much more cohesive if each had their space, allowing their stories to explore the tones that best suit each character. Have you ever thought about how this could change the stories we know? Imagine a Gotham City without the interference of superpowers, focusing solely on Batman's intelligence and determination. As we reflect on this idea, the notion of how DC Comics structured its universe comes into play. Often, editorial decisions shape the worlds we love. The meeting of Batman and Superman, while iconic, arose from a financial context rather than a unified creative vision. Therefore, thinking about how these characters complement or compete with each other can lead us to a new understanding of their narratives and the challenges they face. And so, the plot unfolds, revealing nuances that perhaps we have overlooked until now. Dennis O'Neil, a true master of comic book storytelling, had a clear vision about the coexistence of Batman and Superman that is worth exploring. He believed that these two characters, so distinct in their essences, should not share the same universe. When considering Batman, we have an ordinary yet exceptional human who rises against adversity, while Superman is a being who transcends humanity, possessing almost divine powers. This disparity raises questions about the credibility of the narratives when we mix such different realities. Can you imagine a Gotham City where Superman flies alongside Batman? The atmosphere of mystery and tension, so characteristic of vigilante stories, would fade away, don't you think? For O'Neil, the idea that these stories should remain separate is more than just a preference, it is a matter of tone and verisimilitude. He argued that keeping Batman's and Superman's stories on distinct paths allows each to have its own depth and authenticity. This leads us to an important reflection: how does the diversity of stories enrich our understanding of these characters? A practical example of this is how Batman films have a darker and more realistic tone, while Superman films tend to be more epic and fantastical. When the two meet, it can seem like one is always trying to adjust to the reality of the other, which can hinder the narrative. And that is the beauty of DC comic stories, they offer us the opportunity to see different approaches and tones. O'Neil not only revolutionized Batman but also helped define a new era for DC Comics. His perspective invites us to rethink how we see these characters and appreciate the nuances that make each unique. As we reflect on this, we cannot help but wonder, to what extent does the presence of one affect the narrative of the other? This inquiry can lead us to a deeper understanding of the dynamic between the two. Now, let's delve into the editorial decisions that shape the DC universe. It's interesting to note that the creation of this universe was not exactly a deliberate narrative choice, but rather a result of financial decisions. When Superman and Batman were introduced, each had its own editorial line, reflecting the unique styles that characterized them. What many may not know is that the first intersection between them occurred due to a practical need. DC Comics wanted to maximize profits in a struggling market. This revelation raises the question: to what extent do business decisions shape the art we consume? Imagine the scene in the 1950s when DC realized that combining stories of Superman and Batman could be a solution to boost revenue. Thus, World's Finest Comics was launched, which, although it featured separate stories, was a direct reflection of that need. This initial approach not only set a precedent for future encounters but also highlighted the industry's struggle during a challenging period. This leads us to ponder the relationship between art and commerce. Can we truly separate what we love from what is produced to generate profit? However, even with this economic approach, the magic of the encounter between Batman and Superman was undeniable. Over time, their interactions evolved, resulting in memorable stories that continue to resonate with audiences. What started as an attempt to solve a financial crisis transformed into a rich tapestry of narratives, where rivalry and camaraderie intertwine. As we reflect on this evolution, we are invited to question, how do circumstances shape the stories we love? And more importantly, what does this teach us about the value of adaptation in our own lives? Now, let's explore the first collaboration between Batman and Superman, which took place in 1954, a milestone that many comic book fans still celebrate. For 15 years, these two icons of DC Comics lived in separate universes, each dominating their own realm of stories. What is fascinating is that when they finally met, it was not a simple union. The stories often involved situations where one character needed to temporarily gain the powers of the other to create a balance. This initial approach to equalizing their strengths illustrates an interesting dynamic and shows how writers were trying to resolve the dilemma of two such distinct protagonists. As the comics evolved, so did the way Batman and Superman interacted. They transitioned from mere collaborations where one had the upper hand over the other to a partnership that highlighted their differences. This transition reflects how creativity can flourish when challenges are faced. It's like in real life, often, when two distinct forces come together, there can be unexplored potential that arises from that union. This invites us to consider how oppositions can generate fruitful collaborations in our own daily lives, such as partnerships in work projects or in personal life. The chemistry developed between Batman and Superman is not confined to the comics, it has resonated across various media, including animations and films, where their friendship and rivalry became central themes. Over time, their interactions showed that despite their differences, they could complement each other in surprising ways. This rich relationship teaches us that by accepting and celebrating differences, we can create partnerships that go beyond expectations. Now, as we reflect on these collaborations, it's intriguing to think, what other pairs could we see coming together, and what impact would that have on their stories? Now that you've explored the intriguing relationship between Superman and Batman, it's time to reflect on how these dynamics apply to your life. Think about the opposing forces you encounter in your daily life. What can be learned from them? Are you more aligned with Superman's ideal, always striving for excellence and altruism, or do you feel more like Batman, fighting against adversity with cunning and perseverance? This duality teaches us that, just like in DC, it's possible to coexist in a universe of contrasts. What characteristics can you combine in your own narrative to become a stronger version of yourself? The key to this transformation may lie in recognizing the value in each of these approaches. If you enjoyed this content and want to continue learning about the complexities of DC characters and much more, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Let's explore new topics together and deepen our knowledge. What are you waiting for to change your perspective? Come on, share your thoughts in the comments.